Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Rick Kaplan. My guest today is Ed Bosco. He is the managing principal of ME Engineers. How are you today, Ed?
I'm doing okay. We're dealing with it like everybody else is. We've been out about, I guess, 9 weeks, 10 weeks now. We left a little bit earlier than most of New York did. We kind of saw it coming and said, let's get our people out and just working from home remotely because we're going to be doing this for a while. Let's get good at it while we still have a chance to work on it. And that's been great. I haven't really missed a beat, but it's been different. We're finding it hard to kind of stay together as a group. So we have a lot of phone calls, a lot of Zoom calls, social and work with the guys in the office. So we kind of stay together. How about you?
Yeah, it's been eye-opening for a lot of people, and I think it's going to be a way of how we operate going forward more than we have in the past. And thank God for technology.
It really feels like we need to get good at this. And we're saying if it happened 3 or 4 years ago, we'd be in a totally different place. Like over the past 3 or 4 years, the conferencing has gotten better, remote access has gotten better. Everything used to be paper. We used to just pass rolls of paper back and forth and big documents and catalogs. But the past 3 or 4 years, that's all disappeared. And now we've gotten in the past year, we're really all electronic. So we really haven't missed anything. And it's interesting to see how people adapt to it. We found some new ways to work, and it's going pretty well.
So, ME Engineers, you are a kind of a unique engineering firm. You take on sort of niche type of projects.
And we do. We're a big practice. We're a big global practice, and we have all the typical building types. A lot of experience in all the typical building types. And what happened over the years was we started getting challenged with these projects. We do a lot of large-scale sports, entertainment events, operable roofs, big complex buildings, and we'd had a 35, 40-year legacy in complex healthcare and labs. So you're dealing with a complex environment, then you scale it up bigger. And then people start seeing that, and they see the creativity, and they see the way we approach things. And it started growing into people calling us saying, can you do this? Can we try this? Have you ever seen this? How do we even start? So what joins those projects together is not that we never run out of things we've never done before. People seem to always find new and exciting things for us to try. But what we really do is get good at the process of figuring out how to figure things out. It's what data do we need? How do we assemble a team to think about it? How do we break it up into pieces so you can get a couple of different opinions on it? And we get into a general thinking process that really helps. And it relates a lot to our people too. It feeds itself. You have these exciting projects, you go out to the top schools, you find the top talent, and then those people naturally have the ability to work like this. And then you bring these projects to them and you succeed with them, and then that becomes how you recruit the next round of really top people. So we're a different firm. We're not just moving piles of a very repetitive work. And it's good to keep your brain going, and you feel like you've gotten something done with your day, because some of these complex projects you can spend months on it and really not make any ground. Having stuff that you can just proceed through and feel like you produce something mixed in with the complex stuff it's a nice mix, a nice way to spend our days.
So I would call you true engineers, because the meaning of an engineer is to sort of design and construct something that is not developed.
We bring predictability to that. There's 2 ways to look at it. You could guess at things. You could try to just hope that whatever guess you made worked and then adapt it later. But we bring the science to it early, so we kind of start getting better and better at knowing if we can deliver what people are asking for. And on the architecture side, what it really does is allow the architects to just absolutely dream. You draw us a picture of anything. You want to put 10 gorillas in a 2-acre habitat in a cold climate, we'll help you figure it out. You want to grow marijuana in the middle of Massachusetts, we'll help you figure that out too. Our goal is to deliver it exactly as the architect thought of it, that we just let them draw whatever they want to, and we don't get in the way, and we solve all the technical problems that happen along the way and guide them into a solution. Maybe different materials, it may be a higher performing envelope, it may be a geometry that helps the building work better. We had a project where we were trying to build a collection of animal habitats of different climates, a desert climate, a tropical climate, an ocean climate. And putting those together in a building that had to exist in a place meant a lot of challenges, because if you took the high humid environment and put it on the outside, everything would just condense and drip. So we found a way to nest the environments within each other that minimized all the different environmental challenges we had. And then the architect figured out how to together in a way that became an interesting place to visit. So it's that ability to really not be restricted by traditional solutions has been it's really interesting to us.
Now, one of the things that you mentioned a little while ago was that you find this great talent. You search for great talent to come work for you, and it's probably been very difficult, I would think, to find that type of skill.
Yeah, we're active in the trade organizations, and I actually work with one of them to develop a kind of a clearinghouse for those people, where we take the people that have been displaced and we try to match them up with the firms that are hiring. Our strategy for hiring has generally just been keeping it interesting. A lot of people, we send a lot of engineers into the process, into the education process, and then we lose a lot of them at the end because the jobs aren't very interesting. The jobs are largely repetitive, or they're very data driven, where you're in a room working on a single part, or your entire day is surrounded by other engineers. You're working with people that aren't diverse, that there's it just becomes technical, and people wear out. They leave the industry. Our approach has been to be client facing, be a service industry, and you're building relationships with architects, owners. You're working with real people. You're building schools for people that teach and learn. You're building hospitals for doctors and patients. You're building sports facilities for players and owners and broadcast people. So those are real people, and you can have a real discussion, and you can design a building that serves a real need, and you can come back to your family and discuss it. If I was designing the front end of a Plymouth, like, there's not much you could talk about. You wouldn't come back and tell your wife, hey, I just saved 3 ounces of steel. You can have conversations about what we do with people that are interested. And so, how's that new stadium coming? How's the whatever? Oh, I hear you're working on a heart transplant operating room. Tell me about it. So you can talk to real people. Right. And that's when you go to a job fair, or you meet people, you meet engineers, and you tell them that this can exist, that these jobs exist, that engineering is not just about sitting in a dark room in front of a screen, that there is a chance for real interaction, and these projects are interesting, and that tends to draw them in. So I think we're fighting the reduction in the availability of engineers by actually encouraging less of them to leave. And it's a lot of what I do personally too. I'm on a couple of foundation boards that raise money to improve STEM education in high schools and colleges. I've got 6 interns right now. Everybody kind of just calls me and says, I've got the summer, my job just got canceled. What do I do? So we find things for them to do. We're deploying a team of them to work on COVID right now. They've each picked the category. They've picked an area of focus within the virus. Some are working on airborne control, basically collecting tons of data, going back and trying to find the central research that drives a lot of the media articles you're seeing, so we can break it down into the data. And it's really the same process we use for any of these complex buildings. We collect a mountain of data, we sift out the good from the bad, and then we figure out how to apply it.
So you make it exciting.
We mock stuff up. We're the kind of guys that build stuff. We put the roof on the U.S. Open, opened about 4 years ago now, and the roof was delayed. They were delayed in getting the material on the roof. So we called the roofing vendor, and they sent us a big chunk of material, and we built it. We built a piece, and we watched how it operated. We watched how the water flowed on it. We watched how the temperature changed, and that became our first year of data. And we run the event. We're there on the U.S. Open site, tennis, during the event, running the roof, running all the air conditioning systems. So that data we collected became the start, and then over the years we collect more, and then in the off season I don't want to say it, but we look at the data and try to find better ways to do it. Not that that's most people would say, God, you're a bunch of geeks, but it's really kind of fun. It's fun when you're at the event and you understand what happened, and then you go back and you look at the data and say, next time if we did this 5 minutes earlier, it would have come out better. So we're just constantly improving, collecting a bunch of data, and finding people that like working like that. And it's been really a good time. I've been doing it for 25 years, basically the same firm, but it keeps getting better.
Well, it sounds rewarding, and it also gives you a sense of pride.
We built billions of dollars worth of buildings. So people invest billions of dollars based on designs that we assemble. We put together these ideas, we come up with a plan, and people, there's really nothing quite like sitting in an opening day at one of our new buildings, or going back 5-6 years later, or seeing it 10 years later, that all the things that you put in, all the things that were good ideas back then are still being used. We continue to work with the owners and the operators at the hospitals and laboratories, to get feedback on what we do. Was that idea a good idea? Was it too confusing? did an idea that looked great on paper become really hard to implement years later with operations staff, and what works, what doesn't. It's we tend to have long-term clients, so we get a lot of feedback, which is really helpful.
Now, ME Engineers, is this located in New York, or how many offices are
We're
there?
everywhere. We're international. Europe, Asia, a lot of, U.S. based. Started in the U.S., became a collection of a bunch of U.S. companies that merged together. We generally have an ability to cover anywhere on the world. We're delivering projects up $2-3 billion anywhere in the world from a collection of offices, and it's we've gotten really good at sharing work between offices and spreading resources. A lot of these big projects start and stop very abruptly, and if you have one office doing it, it can create really a business problem. So when jobs get large, we split them up in a couple of offices, and that also helps because it now gives us a European perspective, it gives us a West Coast U.S. perspective, a New York perspective, and they're all a little bit different. Some areas driven more by energy, some are driven by climate, some are driven by budget. Europe tends to be a little bit ahead of us in talking about carbon. So they started talking about carbon. So when the carbon discussion hit the U.S., we were already ready for it because we'd already been having it with our European offices. I think we're run in a very interesting way, and I think it's produced a lot of stability, which is important for us.
Now, you have this COVID-19 that has been hitting everyone, everywhere. You're going to have to start to try to figure out because there's going to be a new way of life after, once this is opening up.
Feels like it. It feels like there's a lot of disconfidence. It's how people want to live their lives. I think there's a lot of fear. I know I've gotten a little better at it. First couple of weeks it was happening, I'd go to the grocery store with a gas mask on and gloves and spray everything with bleach when I came home. We've gotten a little bit better at it. We know it lasts a couple of days, so you quarantine your food now. But it's it's going to be hard to undo this. And I think the good part is we've gotten pretty good at working from home. I think I have a lot of friends do a lot of things, and I think a lot of companies have really adapted well to being at home, and people are enjoying it. It'd be nice to be together. I think the difference, what frustrates me about this right now, is that usually in these natural disasters, we all come together as a community. You get together with your friends. We had blackouts during Sandy. It became a bunch of barbecues. It became a really social thing. And this pandemic hit in a way that kind of broke our social networks. And that's the hard part. That when people die, you can't have a funeral. When you want to get together you see your neighbors walk by every day, but you really can't go hang out with them. That's the bad part of this. And summer is going to make it even harder for that because summer is a time of being outside. So I think if we can get a little bit better. New York is trailing the country in how this is. You obviously see it. Some places don't have a lot of cases; they're able to go back quickly. But here we're just constantly reminded of it. And our transportation systems are probably our biggest challenge. That you're stuffing yourself into a subway or a commuter rail in a very tight situation. And I think once we can get past that, everything else is easy. Once you get past a subway and a crowded New York City street or restaurant, I think the rest of it becomes much easier to go back to. And I think we're seeing a lot of challenges on how building systems react to this, but there aren't a whole lot of great ideas. There's a lot of stuff that could be applied if you started from scratch to build a building, but in terms of retrofits, we're having a hard time really finding things that are universally effective without a lot of maintenance and operations requirements. But we'll get there. We're working on it.
I'm sure you will. If you can put an electric roof, sliding roof on top of a stadium, you can come up with anything, I'm sure.
The holy grail is trying to stop a sneeze in the air. We can clean the surfaces, we can clean things overnight, but if you're in a room with somebody and they look at you and they sneeze, that sneeze is coming at you at 35 miles an hour. So it's a third as fast as a baseball, but you got to be good at getting out of the way because you can't really see it. So
Ed, before we go, if you could just give me or our viewers and our listeners 3 bullet points on what they would want to look for as far as an engineer or even when they're doing a project.
I think you want creativity. You want people that are flexible. I think if you see people that really start talking about breaking down a scope into very particular items and numbers of meetings and numbers of conferences, you're kind of getting into a point where it doesn't feed that collaborative environment. we're looking for clients that want to collaborate. We're looking for clients that have a long-term vision and don't really think project specific and don't really think of a short-term relationship. And those tend to be the best for us. And as a person hiring us or retaining an engineer or architect for services, you want to find people that have built long-term relationships with other architects, other the architecture and engineering industry, and other clients. You want that relationship, because if you've proven you can maintain a relationship, I think the next project will be easier. And it comes back to how we hire people too. That we go out looking for people that have had relationships, people that have maintained longer-term relationships. The sports teams, fraternities, social organizations. We look for people that are doers and joiners, because they will build a society with us and they'll build relationships with clients more effectively.
Well, Ed, you gave us a lot of information.
I tried. It was great talking to you.
And we appreciate it. We've been speaking with Ed Bosco. He is the managing principal at ME Engineers. Ed, I wish you a very pleasant afternoon, and I hope you and your family stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching today's interview. If you'd like to be a guest, a sponsor, or even advertise in the New England Real Estate Journal, you'll find our contact information in the description box below. You can also find all our social media platforms so you can follow us, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.